you're here, then you already know who she is. Lydia Tarr is many things. As a conductor, Tarr began her career with the Cleveland Orchestra, Chicago Symphony Orchestra, the Boston Symphony Orchestra, until she had last arrived here at our own New York Philharmonic. In 2013, Berlin elected Tarr as its principal conductor, and she's remained there ever since. Lydia Tarr has also written music for the stage and screen. She is one of only 15 EGOTs, meaning those who have won all 4 major entertainment awards. Thank you for joining us, Maestro.
Thank you.
How's the writing going?
Not so well. I keep hearing something.
Schopenhauer measured a man's intelligence against his sensitivity to noise.
Do you ever find yourself overwhelmed by emotion?
Yes. Yes, that does happen.
We have a problem.
I received another weird email.
There's no reason to get caught up in any intrigue.
I'm worried. She's starting to disappear into herself.
You want to dance the mask, you must service the composer. You gotta supplement yourself. Your ego and, yes, your identity. You must in fact stand in front of the public and God and obliterate yourself.
She scares me.
Free Lydia Tarr. Free Lydia Tarr. Uncancel Lydia Tarr. Lydia Tarr did nothing wrong. She did nothing wrong.
Stop.
Stop what?
Lies. You're lying.
I'm not lying. What did she do
You're
wrong?
a liar.
What did she do wrong?
She's a liar.
We all
uses
lie,
her
don't we?
Power to manipulate.
She's a woman. Born with no power, dies with no power. That's
not
your
true.
lot in
That's
life.
not true anymore.
Women hating women. Look at
It
this
was like
shit.
that for a long time, but it's not like that anymore. Women can be in charge and they can be just as big of dicks as men can.
No, women against women. You should be ashamed of yourself. You should be ashamed of yourself.
I am not ashamed of myself because I equal opportunity like or dislike people regardless of their race or gender.
Give me the details of
or
what she did wrong.
ethnicity.
What did she do wrong?
So
She was haunted or something?
listen, okay, maybe she was
She's
haunted.
got ghosts chasing
Maybe
her
she
and
was
you're putting her down.
stalked. Maybe she was going crazy a little bit, but at the end of the day, she fucked around.
It found
She
out.
lied. She lied to her wife. She neglected her daughter. She manipulative and sneaky with like positions at work. Like she used her. Yes, she did.
Impossible.
Yes, she did. She hired and fired people and held jobs over people's heads, like just to make them keep them under her thumb.
We all have to have sex to get by in this world. That's how I moved.
That's not true.
That's how in the early 2000s, how I moved from the pizza line to delivery
Oh, is
at,
it?
at Pizza Hut. I fucked my way
Ugh.
to using my own gas in my own car.
I'm sorry.
And I got free cheese sticks. I'm proud of the work on my back that I did. Anyway, we're talking about the movie.
I'm Angela.
I'm Bob Sham.
This is Movie Humpers.
This is Movie Humpers. The sounds you might hear are dogs. Yes.
Bobby made me watch Tar.
There is a change.org petition.
Oh, God.
I need 5 signatures to make it visible. So just look below the video, hit the link, sign that change.org petition. You're going to do it.
I'm not doing it.
Yes, you are.
You can't fucking make me.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
I have access to your stuff. All right? So go to...
Better not fucking put my name on that shit.
Go to https://chng
Now spell it slash. You'll never find it.
IT /little b, capital L, little v, capital F, 4, the number 4, little c, capital F, capital W, little f, and M as in, my God, you hate women. Sad.
I do not hate women.
Sad. I guess you'll never, those who stand up for Lydia Tarr, who understand art, we are the Tarded. I am a proud Tard.
Robert.
Okay?
Robert. This is not okay.
I'm talking about my fandom and adoration for a true artist. All right?
It's not okay.
Join our legions, the legions of the Tarded. All right?
No.
And be a Tard just like me.
No. No.
We're talking about the movie.
I'm sorry.
We're talking about the movie.
I'm really sorry.
I don't understand why you're apologizing. Why are you apologizing?
Well, first, I'm sorry if anyone watched this movie just because we were going to talk about it. Also, I'm sorry.
Wow, you hate this movie?
I don't hate this movie.
Interesting.
We had a pretty interesting conversation after this movie. Like, it spurred some interesting, thoughts and conversations, but the watching of this movie was not entirely enjoyable for me.
Interesting. Guess you're just not sophisticated. We're talking about the
I'm
movie.
not.
We're talking about the movie Tar, directed by Todd Field from last year. Part of our catching up double theme that we have this month. It stars Cate Blanchett, Noémie Merlant, Nina Haas, Sophie Kyer, Julian Glover. Excellent cinematography by Florian Hofmeister. And the music is by Hildur Guðnadóttir, who's a woman.
Nice.
Does that bother you?
No.
The budget for this movie was $25 million.
Okay.
It made $29 million because the international audience actually came out for it.
Only because of the international audience.
And put it over the edge.
Well,
Yes.
I'm glad they didn't lose money, I guess. It's always sad when a film straight up loses money.
Yeah, it's from the United States and Germany.
I'm glad I didn't pay to watch it.
Wow, you're really upset.
I'm not upset. It's not upset. It's more apathy. I just...
Huh. What did you think this movie was trying to tell you at the end?
At the end...
What was this movie's, in brief,
Okay.
in 2 sentences,
Yeah.
what was this movie's message to you? What do you think this movie's message to you was?
This movie is showing sort of a level of the art world, music world. God, Bobby, I don't know. I think at the end of the day, Tar is a story about a woman who fights her way to the top but doesn't even actually know who she is. She has all of her ideas and her thoughts were formed when she was very young. There's a part where we see her go back to her house. And there's more than 2 sentences, but there's a part where we see her go back to her house and she pulls out these old VHS tapes that she obviously watched as she was a child. And you see...
Of Leonard Bernstein.
Leonard Bernstein is giving this speech about the importance of music and she's crying, but it just echoes of things you've heard her say throughout this movie where she's in interviews or she's reading bits of her book. It's just, she's regurgitating other people's ideas. There's also this whole thing about, is a conductor really interpreting anything? Are they really doing anything? Because they're not really changing anything. The whole point is that you're at the behest of the composer. You're performing someone else's art. But you're not even performing it. You're keeping time. They talk about time.
I think you're kind of alluding that she's a bullshit artist. that she's just kind of a facade of a
I think
human.
she's a narcissist. I think she does. I honestly don't think she knows herself. I don't think she knows herself.
I kind of agree with you there. You know,
she's what people want her to be,
except for a few other people, except for those closest to her.
I don't think that she. I mean, she might be so. I don't know that she has emotions the way that people around her do. I won't say she doesn't have emotions, but she doesn't have them in the same way.
That's possible. Now, I was looking at some criticisms of this movie, and as you could tell, there may be a lot of interpretations of this movie.
Yeah.
There's some that is like some ideas that certain scenes and stuff may not be real. Like,
very interested about that.
And there's certain ideas that maybe this is almost like a soft horror story, like a ghost story in a way, which I can definitely see where people come up with that.
Yeah,
but I think
I want to talk about that a little bit.
But I think this is kind of a story of hubris and self-sabotage. Mm-hmm. But the one but there's two specific interpretations that I reject outright. And I can't remember the critic's name, but I read. You read like a paragraph of something, I was like, this person has no idea what they're talking about. Right. And then you move on. But someone described this movie as like fodder for the conservative mindset because it's supposed to be like cutting too deep into cancel culture. And I don't believe that any more than I believe that it's something that is supposed to be the opposite of that, which shows the effectiveness of cancel culture and that, like, yeah, she deserves all this. Like, I think Todd Field approached this a lot smarter than that, and he did not present this in a way. This movie was very controlled.
Oh yeah,
in its presentation.
Yes,
Todd Field is apparently was a student of he was a student of Kubrick. Like, he knew him.
Oh yeah,
I think he did work on Eyes Wide Shut or something.
Okay,
but it's not quite so cut and dry as that.
Yeah.
And the idea that this is like conservative fodder is just like not even understanding the nature of a conservative audience, which a lot of liberals have a problem even properly, as simple and reactive as it is, really properly identifying the cultural core of it. This idea that like conservatives who hate cancel culture are just going to pack in and watch this movie about a composer. This is a fucking the core of the hubris of this movie exists in NPR world, not Fox News world.
Exactly. And what you just said is you being more thoughtful about it than people who wrote those articles, because what they're doing is clickbait. They're wanting to say Tar is talking about cancel culture so that you click on to see what the fuck they're saying. And it doesn't have anything to do with the actual movie, which is about the fall of a person.
There have also been, in an equal quick clickbait fashion over the past year since this movie came out, there have been people coming out and saying that Tar is where they have this reactionary political mindset. The more clinically online people saying that Tar is a lampooning of cancel culture on their philosophical behalf. But these people, they're not going to understand this fucking movie. That's the nature of this movie. They're not going to. And the obnoxious conversation around cancel culture, it doesn't just fall to the MAGA audience. You hear more of these like centrist liberal types bringing it up more and more as well. Or people who are just older celebrities who maybe aren't very good at their jobs, who haven't had a lot of work, and suddenly cancel culture becomes something convenient for them, like a shell that they can put on, like a defense system that almost like lets them off the hook in a sense that I didn't just fail. I was canceled. Exactly. And I think there is something to that with this movie here, with Lydia Tarr. Yeah, and we open up. We see her in this very long-winded, one of those NPR interviews. You ever hear those Dave Bean Cooley like jazz record reviews? And it's I would never. And it's like, who the fuck is buying these records? You know, like, I know. I don't even know which Marsalis you're talking about at this point.
I actually got that.
Hey, you are sophisticated.
I don't know about that. I hate jazz.
You don't hate jazz.
I've yet to meet the jazz that I love.
Well, Lydia
Ella
Tarr.
Fitzgerald jazzy?
Yeah, that's
Yeah, I
like
love
vocal,
her.
classic vocal. You probably like classic vocal jazz.
There you go. I like
Yeah.
classic vocal jazz.
Yeah.
I don't like instrumental showing off jazz. Anyway, I guess. So they make a point really early on in this interview to talk about the fact that she is a woman in a space where there's not a lot of women particularly, but she actually throws it up and says like, oh no, there were plenty of women before me. People, you just don't talk about them. And she like actually like says some of that. And at the beginning of this, I was like, oh, this is like a cool lady who's like maybe a little crazy because she seemed a little like off, but a lot of artists are a little off,
Sure.
you know?
Yeah.
And so eccentric, fine. But I was like, oh, okay. So she like definitely is not a person like that's like, I got here on my own. She like recognizes that people came before her, that she's standing on the backs of other women who also, you know, did this. But then there's this big question to her, which I guess I referenced earlier of, what are you actually doing as a conductor? How are you making a piece your own? She's about to go and do Mahler's Fifth.
Mm-hmm.
And here's what's interesting.
She is writing something in the movie. It's never completed, but
Yeah, she's writing a song for her daughter.
this is also what conductors do. They play these big pieces that have existed for years.
Absolutely.
Let's get into the classroom scene. Could you talk about that scene?
Oh, yeah. That's actually what I was going to say. So, real quick, in that interview, she is talking about how she has to think about what was going on with Mahler at the time that he wrote the Fifth and come at it from that perspective of like who he was and what he was doing. Fast forward, she's teaching this class at Juilliard. And there is this student, Max, who self-describes himself as a BIPOC pangender person.
Himself, themselves.
Themselves.
Woker you are. Woker you are.
Pangender, I believe, means he, she, or they.
Oh, so we're both
If
right.
it was,
So we're both right.
we're both right, but I'm not wrong. And you were trying to say I was wrong. So yeah, we're both right.
I'm still Woker you are. Go ahead.
Okay, whatever. He's conducting in front of her this very weird piece of music, right? That doesn't really, it sounds a little disjointed, but it's, I guess, more modern, right? And so she's talking about the classics, and he says, I can't relate to people like, who was it? Bach?
Bach, yes.
And he says he doesn't like Bach because he was a misogynist and he had like 20 kids, and you know, he's talking about like these like cis male straight like composers, and he can't relate to them. And she basically tells him, you're being too sensitive and you can't judge. You can't say you don't like a piece of music because of like who wrote it and where they were in their life, like their gender or their race or what country they were from. But then, which I agree with.
Actually, I thought she made a good point.
It was a really good point.
She ultimately upsets this
Oh yeah, tell
kid.
a bit about the person he likes.
He mentions somebody he likes, and
Mhm.
of course she knows everything about this world, so she comes up with some factoid about how he said something.
It's a woman.
Yeah, a woman who, and she has said something vaguely anti-Semitic, maybe not, about like Jewish people co-opting jazz.
Mm-hmm.
And so she brought that up to kind of show that like no one here is going to ride the line of every which way.
Mm-hmm.
And I get it. Like this idea of like, I can't relate. Well, I personally cannot relate to anyone from like 300 years ago.
Yeah.
It
Agree.
Regardless of if they have the same, even if they're in my own family, a lot of people project their bullshit onto their own ancestry, but they might know some factoids, but they don't have any moral knowledge of that. A lot of people will project that moral. All you really know is that your relatives were nutting into each other until you came along.
Right. And the idea that you would say automatically that you agree with or understand more, relate more to a woman composer that you actually don't know anything about than a male composer that you also actually don't know anything about. It's one thing if you've read books about them and researched them and know all this stuff that you can back it up, but just saying, like, I agree with her because she's a woman, I disagree with him because he's a man. Like, if you can judge them based on their gender, then people can also do that to you, or the color of your skin, or your sexual orientation, or the way that you're dressed. Mm-hmm. And she does kind of have this sort of like, it almost feels like a revelation moment. Like, he storms out.
Where are you going?
You're a fucking bitch.
And you are a robot.
And she's talking about, you can't be yourself. She's like, I'm a fucking U-Haul lesbian.
What does that mean?
I think U-Haul lesbian is like the move in after 6 weeks lesbian. I think that's what that's referencing.
She does move fast.
She moves very fast with all the girls. Mm. But yeah, it's this whole, she basically says, to be a good conductor, you have to not be yourself. Like, you have to be like a blank slate. Like, you have to take on whatever that is, but then you're taking that on. So it's like all contradiction too. Like, she's saying you can't care about who the person is or what they were doing in order to say whether their music is good or not. But then why do you need to look into that person's life and what they were doing when they wrote this piece if it's just a good piece on its own? Do you see what I'm saying? It's a contradiction.
Sometimes when people are kind of shocked by when they're absorbing anything art, whether it be institutions or art or whatever in this world, and it reflects something that defies their own personal morality. I've learned over the years to not expect moral compunction. I can only expect moral compunction from my own moral code.
Absolutely.
But art can be good and artists can be shitty, and both of those things can be true.
Yes.
And fucking everybody has something in their house that was a work of art made by somebody who was shitty in some form or fashion.
Absolutely.
And so the idea that anyone could relate to anyone centuries ago, period, where they're just like grasping. We're all just grasping at this shit. So don't it's naive to expect everything to you're what you think you're relating to is just you projecting into something that you're not even a part of.
Yeah.
So.
And if you believe that you're doing a job and you are an interpreter, then make it your own.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who wrote it.
Yeah.
Make it your own.
So I kind of did agree with Lydia's critique here. That's about where we end with
agreeing with Lydia.
Because let's be honest, we're not in the world of orchestra and composition, so there's a lot of like language surrounding this world that just sounds like blowhard hubris, and I think it's totally meant to sound like that.
Well, yeah, I mean, even there's a lunch that she goes to with this guy who's also a conductor, and it feels grody. Like, I just don't like them, like, and I don't think I'm supposed to, but it's just uncomfortable. And like, he's sort of like, how did you get them to do this one thing? Like, he basically was like offering her jobs and all kinds of stuff, extra hotel days, like to give her
he's
some
also
hints.
trying to figure out how to get an edge into what she's doing as well.
Yeah,
so there's like,
why are you going to help somebody take your spot?
There's a thirst to the whole conversation. And Lydia Tarr, free Lydia Tarr, uncancel Lydia Tarr, she is very much really at the tippy top in her ego in terms of fame here.
Yeah.
So this movie, there is a study of power here. But as we move along into the story, like when she's doing the big interview at the beginning, we see the back of a woman's head. When she's going into her penthouse or wherever she's at, and I think it's before we get to Berlin, we see the back of a woman's head. When I was watching this, I was like, that's her? Like, I convinced myself.
Her hair was different though.
But in certain lights, her hair looks red.
That's why I thought it was someone different though.
She
I think they made a point to make it not her.
She kind of has the same type of hair a little bit that the person that we thought it was. That's that strawberry blonde shit where it looks reddish and it looks blondish. Like I've had hair. I have hair like that. Sometimes it's just some people tell you have blonde hair. Sometimes people tell you have red hair.
Okay.
You know, so that's all. That's why I thought that.
I'm not saying that you're not allowed to think that. I just disagree.
Lydia has a relationship with someone who is in her orchestra. She lives in Berlin. She's in the Berlin Philharmonic. So most of the movie takes place in Germany. And she has a relationship with a woman who is like a lead in her orchestra.
She's first chair violin, and that's like the person that the conductor, when they come out, they shake the hand. They're kind of like the leader of the orchestra.
And she has an assistant named Francesca. And you can tell that people who are close to her orbit, that are in her world, she definitely, at least at some point, had some kind of romantic sexual relationship with. When the movie first opens up, and we understand later that it's Francesca, she's texting with someone on the jet with
who I think is Krista.
Krista, who we'll get into later.
Yeah.
And they're kind of making fun of her, kind of ragging her, trolling her.
Totally. Because she's this person who seems very attractive. She seems very intelligent. She seems very like easygoing. She's none of those things.
Yeah.
I mean, she is intelligent for sure. She's not easygoing. And I mean, sure, she's an attractive woman, but she's a gross person. And people are just kind of falling at her feet. But you do kind of get that people want to be close to her, but then when you get close to her, you realize that she's not all those things. She's just kind of a shitty person under it.
Yeah.
You know, she has this, Sharon is her wife's name, basically her wife. They're partners, and they have a daughter who is like, I think 7. And there's a part where Sharon says to her, the only relationship you've ever had that wasn't transactional is with the person sleeping in the next room.
Yeah, the kid, Petra.
The kid was the only one. But also,
she does seem to have a genuinely positive relationship with this child.
I think that she does have a positive relationship, but you also get the idea that because she's gone for long periods of time.
That's true. Sharon is doing
a little bit of, Sharon is the mom.
She describes herself,
or the full-time caregiver.
When she's talking to her daughter's bully, she describes herself as the father.
Yeah, I'm Petra's father.
Yeah.
Yeah. I loved that.
And Woker New York? Woker New York?
What? Maybe
she's the father?
She's the father?
I don't know. I just want to.
I'm cool with it.
It's just fun to say that word.
I know. Woker New York. It's one word.
So
So
Francesca keeps bringing up that, we see the back of this woman's head. But what's interesting is that, maybe she didn't see that woman in the back of the auditorium when she's doing the interview in New York.
No, I don't think she did.
But you see the woman standing outside of the penthouse as she's walking in. She seems very close. Mm-hmm. Is she really there?
Yes. She wasn't that close. She was at the... We had to rewind this part because I don't think you saw her the first time. She was like at the end of the block. So it was as though she was looking around the corner of the building. And so she wouldn't have been seen. Mm. It seemed as though a stalker. I thought a stalker, which I think is what happened. You did mention early on, and I just want to talk about this for 1 second. You mentioned that some people call it like soft horror. I get that because there was a moment where I was like, is she being stalked? Is she being haunted? Is she going crazy? And it could have gone any of those ways. But there was a moment where she's hearing this like metronome basically, but it's so loud. And it's like, she hears these noises as though they're like booming in her head, which is actually like, can be like misophonia, where you just like fixate on a noise and it sounds like louder than life. So, but you can feel like you're going crazy if you have that. I have it a little bit. It's intense sometimes. But she's walking down this hallway and this like noise is happening. And I actually had the thought, I wonder what this movie would look like in the hands of like an Ari Aster.
Yeah.
Like just like turn up the weirdness a couple more notches. And I feel like this might have been, to me, way more interesting and better.
I honestly think that what we got and how it was presented was as good as it could be.
Okay, fair.
I'm glad that, I like Ari Aster, mm-hmm. but this is a Todd Field movie and how it's just so specific. He's like a student of Kubrick, right?
That's true, yeah.
The way these shots are framed, everything feels so deliberate. you see like portions of people before you actually meet people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really interesting how it's all laid out, and it just comes off feeling extremely particular, like nothing
That's true.
nothing is that loose.
Yeah.
And I like that it's vague. Like an Ari Aster movie, you would know it's a horror.
Yeah.
You're
'cause he
not
would
you're
show
not
you.
sure watching a Tar movie, watching this Todd
This is
Field
true.
movie.
And you know, as things kind of start to fall apart for her.
Well, I want to talk about the Krista.
Yeah.
Like Francesca keeps kind of informing Lydia that Krista keeps trying to reach out.
And they never say specifically what the relationship was, but you find out over time that
They were all together at some point, and there was a physical romantic relationship.
there's this group that Lydia is part of and kind of like on the board of. I think it's called like the Accordion Society or something. And they basically, it's a program for young women conductors, and they help them find placements and things.
Krista
and,
is we see a picture of her later conducting.
But Tar ruined her life. Like, so Krista's obsessed with her. You find out eventually that
She kills herself.
Krista kills herself, and there's this part where Lydia Tar goes through her email and looks up all the emails she sent about Krista to other conductors, telling them not to hire
She
her.
actively did use her leverage to prevent her from having a career in her field.
And she's accused. So with this is kind of the when the undoing begins is when she finds out Krista has committed suicide. So Krista is no longer alive, and Francesca's fucked up about it.
Yeah.
But Lydia's like really shitty about it.
She asked her to delete all her emails, which she does not do.
And she's like, we just have to forget about her. We just have to just forget about her, put her out of your mind. And this was this person's friend.
Now, when I read the article that it was like a Slate article that was positing the horror, the soft horror aspects to it, and also posited that maybe some things just were not real, like when she goes into the building later in the movie. And I think these are kind of these are interesting assessments, but it also there were some things that we missed when we watched it in terms of the scenes. Like there are parts where she's going into her bookshelf looking for something, and you see a woman in the bedroom in the back. It's so subtle, and props to this article for pointing that out. And there's another part where it's really dark and she's getting up out of bed and you can barely make it out, but there is a figure standing in the dark in this movie. Like, we should revisit this movie down the road because there are like these little things that are in the scenes that we missed that are very deliberate, but so done in such a way that is so like you could so easily miss it, and we did.
Is it like after Krista has died?
I'm trying to
that she's then being haunted?
I'm not exactly, I want to say yeah, but I'm not 100% sure of the timeline.
Because I wondered I wondered the night that Tar was woken up with the metronome and she was so scared and
that was definitely after she died.
That was definitely like the night Krista died, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I was wondering about that. So it was all, yeah, wow, okay.
Tar's
That's really
also
interesting.
Tar at one point also focuses in on a noise that occurred with her neighbor. Her neighbor is like
the beeping.
Yeah. So that kind of speaks to what you were saying and how.
Yeah.
But she's at that point she's probably confused as to what is real and what is not in her mind.
Yeah.
She's not sure. She's not vocalizing like, oh, something is
she's not
inside.
telling anybody.
Yeah, she's not telling anybody. But yeah, so I would, if whether or not what we're seeing is real or not, I'm not sure if she understands that what she's seeing is real or not at times. And after Krista's death, it seems like, she obviously is asking to get rid of the emails because she knows that this could disaffect her in light of this tragedy.
Yeah, because she was ignoring this person who's trying to reach out, and she actively spoke against her.
So it speaks to, at least in terms of her career, like a creeping dread.
Yeah.
That is kind of following her.
Yeah.
And now what should she do when she gets to this? Well, her hubris, her fame, her sense of power, her narcissism, her idea of damage control is to just tell people to delete their emails. She doesn't get out in front of this. She doesn't make a statement.
She doesn't even tell her wife.
Because everyone who knows her in her orbit knows that she had some kind of connection with this student. She was in these classes, you know. There's like, you can tell someone to delete the emails, but she sent all these emails to what could be hundreds of people.
And her response to every question, this is a deposition at some point, every question is, I don't know. I don't remember. She literally is acting as though she never met this person.
Yeah.
They were like, how long did you spend with her? And she's like, I don't know. I'd have to check with my assistant. I think overall, like, it was maybe a month.
And ultimately,
it's just very, like, disconnected.
And ultimately, it's Krista's parents who are, we never meet them,
right,
who have put out that accusation of grooming, I guess, that these young college students, I guess, they want to get big in the industry. Yeah. She takes them along. She's lovers with them for a while. And then when she gets what she wants out of them, or they do anything that she, doesn't like, she tosses them aside. And Francesca's stuck around, maybe in the hopes that things will work out. Or
everyone thinks that she's going to make her assistant officially, and she doesn't.
Yeah. And she fires this one dude who has been around forever, and he's very confused about it because of the way he says something needs to be not as loud. And so she uses that little bit of criticism and like forces him out.
Well, that's part of what the very boring lunch is at the beginning with the other conductor, is her talking about how that guy is like not really with it anymore, and she needs to get rid of him, but her predecessor had brought him in because he was her predecessor's lover. Right. So she hadn't gotten rid of him because she didn't want to disappoint her predecessor.
As much as it seems like, she's this bullshit artist with a lot of hubris, it also kind of paints this entire world of composers the same way.
Yeah, it really does.
I actually like, a classical score, especially when it's laid over a movie or something like that. I've gotten more into instrumental stuff the older I get, and I'm not saying there's not talent there, but in any aspect of the arts, there's just an immense amount of bullshit and hubris. Yeah, and I think like it's shown very well, and I don't think it's meant to disrespect the classical form and the works, but it does seem like, to me, it is a bit of a criticism of that world.
Yeah, for sure.
And when you go into any art world, there's something like this. So I think thinking of it like that, this is, while you may not understand a lot of what they're talking about here, you can kind of put it into other things that you are obsessed with, that you deal with or get really nerdy about, and that has dominated your mind.
Yeah, so she has lunch with her predecessor at one point. So this is after Krista has died. She's found out that she's going to have a deposition, that she's been accused of things, and someone cut the conversation she had in the class in a way that makes it seem as though she were being racist and misogynist herself.
That Juilliard class, it was badly edited.
It was so badly. And she was even like, it's obviously been twisted around. And yes, it had obviously been. Yeah. But that was just like the cherry on the top of the pile of shit, that was already there. It didn't matter.
Yeah, it's not really the video, but the accusations.
And it's just piling up. And so she has lunch with this guy, and he's talking to her about, like, truly, she's like, can you speak with me about, like, people saying that you did things, saying that a conductor maybe did things that they shouldn't have been doing. And he's like, who said what? Who said what about me? And she's like, not about you. Yeah. And he's like, okay, well then he starts talking to her about how literally every single person that he's ever known who's been a conductor has had something either that they were successful in hiding or that they fucking got kicked out for. Like, it's very common from the way he was talking. He started talking about a composer who had been accused of being a Nazi.
Oh, yeah.
And she was like, surely you're not comparing being a Nazi to like a sexual transgression. And he's like, isn't it all the same though? Like, when someone thinks you've done something bad, then you've done something bad. And even if you didn't do it, once they think it, you've done it.
I love the rationale there where he was like, oh, well, he didn't sign Heil Hitler at the end of his letters like everyone else did.
Yeah, he was like, even when he wrote to Hitler. What?
Hitler's kind of a great thing to bring up. I mean, in the sense of...
That's a weird soundbite.
Because when it comes to like the art and the artist, Hitler's so convenient because he was a monster and a shitty painter, right? But it's just not always going to be like that, right? But yeah, so when she tells that guy that he's being replaced, he becomes very openly, he's like, well, I assume you're going to replace me with Francesca because this is alluding to her directly. And when she pushes back and she gets very venomous about it, he starts to back off. But his career is done. And Francesca, she says to Francesca, and this is another instance of self-sabotage. Maybe she didn't assign Francesca to that role ultimately because maybe it might look bad.
It would look like nepotism.
But at the same time, you've got this woman that knows all of your skeletons.
And you're going to not give her the job?
She's probably perfectly talented for the gig, and you're not going to give her the job.
And not giving her the job also sabotaged.
Yeah.
So that is the only move that she seems to make to protect herself, is not giving Francesca that job because she thinks it'll look bad. But in that, Francesca leaves her and goes and tells people about what she's been doing. There's an article that comes out in like the New York Times, I think they said, with all these former students talking about how she would give you favors. And if you didn't do what she wanted, she would blacklist you. Like, if you didn't fuck her, you were done. And in the meantime, she's got the hots for this, like, cello player.
Yeah, this Russian girl.
Who's, like, you know, the exciting new thing in her life. And she's giving her these private lessons because she, like, schemed a way to get her a solo. It's all so shitty.
And there's
everyone knows it's so obvious.
And there's like a cellist that's been in the Philharmonic for years who everyone's expecting to do this, and she gives it
it's tradition.
Yeah.
Tradition is that if you're an orchestra and you do a piece and you don't get someone from outside, because usually that would be like and featuring this famous cellist with our orchestra, right? When you're not doing that, when you're not featuring someone, it should go to first chair.
I would love.
So it should have been that woman's spot.
I would love if Lydia Tarr came to the Nashville Symphony. If she comes to the Nashville Symphony,
she's not real. She's not a real person. But okay, so she's obsessed with this young girl who she gives this solo to. So in the midst of, I've got a deposition on Friday. I've got a book reading this weekend in New York. And I've just fired my MIA former assistant who knows what she's saying. All these articles have come out. She decides to take the pretty young cellist to New York with her. This was cool because this was Lydia sabotaging herself. But also, that girl didn't give a shit about Lydia. She was going out at night. She was like talking to boys. She's
while
like
Lydia's
partying.
sitting in her hotel room.
Then we see at the book reading, again, the phone.
Oh.
And this time, it's the little cellist videoing with someone making fun of her, talking about, like, her allegories.
Well, she's been slowly working on this book called Tar on Tar.
Oh, yeah.
And this is meant to be stupid and funny.
Yes.
And she's reading, like, an excerpt from her own book, and it's, like, the lamest shit you ever heard.
It's so bad.
It's so goofy and corny, and so... She's definitely high on herself, and it shows. And if it's not clear that she's just kind of full of shit, then by that point it really should be.
And she's like distracted from reading her own book because the girl's talking to a boy in the back. Like she's like weirdly obsessed about the things that she shouldn't care about, and she doesn't pay attention to the things that she should. And they go back and Sharon is like, what the fucking fuck? Like, because everyone's watching Tar right now, there's photos of her and it's like Tar's new young thing photographed in New York. Like, she's like walking through people at this deposition protesting her with this girl.
Yeah.
Like, this looks so bad. It looks terrible.
It could not be the worst move you could possibly make.
Yeah, so Sharon's like, get the fuck out. You still have an apartment, because Tar's never given up her apartment.
Lydia Tarr, whose real name is Linda Tarr.
Yeah.
She goes to meet her daughter as she comes out of school, but she's saying she's keeping her daughter away from her, which, all things considered, keeping her away from her child is a little harsh.
Okay, here's how I interpreted that.
Okay.
I don't know that she's not allowed to see the kid at all, because I agree. If she's not allowed to see the kid at all, that's not cool. But what Lydia did in that moment is she went up to the school and was like, Petra, do you want to go to the park with me right now? She was trying to steal Petra. And then Sharon walks around the corner and is like, Lydia, don't do this.
She
don't do this right now.
I don't think she was going to steal Petra because...
I don't think she was going to steal her, but she was going to take her for a few hours.
Because she would not get far in dealing with Petra without Sharon.
No, but I just mean, like, she'd probably take her home later, but like, oh, I just wanted to see her.
Yeah.
But like, she wasn't communicating because she only does what she wants to do. She doesn't think about anyone else's feelings or needs.
But Sharon...
And so she didn't think to call Sharon. And maybe Sharon said no to you can see her, but...
But Sharon is another one that came up within her orbit by being in a relationship with her.
Absolutely.
She is an example of all these other women. And it's so funny that, like, you know, Francesca... maybe was starry-eyed about Tar at some point.
Yeah.
But with her and the Russian cellist who sees it before anything goes too far.
Fast.
Like, the people in which she thinks she has the most admiration and respect from, they're seeing through her.
Absolutely.
The facade is, like, breaking quite a bit.
Well, and you can see Sharon. Sharon's not stupid.
Yeah.
She knows because she knows she did. At one point, they do talk about how she and Sharon schemed to make her the conductor of the Berlin Orchestra. Like, they schemed it. Like, how can we handle the politics to make this happen? And when she comes back with this, from this trip, and there's these photos of these girls, and Sharon says to her, basically, I could deal with any of it, except that you didn't fucking tell me. You didn't give me a heads up. You didn't say to me, these articles are coming out, I have this deposition. Sharon had to walk into her orchestra not knowing what the fuck was going on and have everyone whispering and talking behind her back, and then Tar gets fired. So then the other man is conducting, right? And Sharon doesn't even know she got fired.
Yeah.
She knows nothing. And she's truly like, I think that if there's a different story where Lydia went to Sharon at the beginning and they worked through this as a united front, and that could have been an anti-cancel
you
culture
know
movie.
Sharon knows about the infidelity.
Sharon knows about
there's no way she
everything.
doesn't know about the past with Francisca or Krista. There's like no way she doesn't know.
She even makes a comment about Francesca at some point. I can't remember how she words it, but she says it in a way that you know.
Oh my god, when she shows up and like the French horn player is blowing and she walks up right behind him, and it's so fucking well done how you don't see, like, Todd Field is not like focusing in on the new conductor who's the guy she had that lunch with.
Oh, not
forever.
at all. But it is like, why did they start without her?
You're seeing her come in. Like, you find out that she's fully replaced when she's walking in and they're starting the orchestra, because it kind of tricks you into thinking like maybe she still has the job because she's all dressed up. And then she walks up
sprinting.
and then she starts sprinting. And the way it's shot is just fucking
she
fantastic.
like body checked him.
And she like tackles him. That shit was so funny. This movie's maybe funnier than people might. In a way,
Yes.
it's funnier than people might think it is.
And I when the next line got said, that's when I thought people maybe cling a little too hard to this idea where the new conductor says to her, Lydia, I think you may be confused.
Mm.
He's trying to be nice because she's obviously having a break. She just tackled a conductor in front of the Berlin Orchestra while playing Mahler's Fifth, okay? She's losing her shit. But that doesn't mean that she's imagined this whole movie.
Yeah.
He knows who she is. She did once stand in that spot. Like, she did not imagine that she was the conductor for the Berlin Orchestra.
Yeah,
but I
yeah.
think that that's where you can start to piece back, like, oh, well, did this happen and did this
Well,
happen? How
there's a-
confused is she? And I think,
There's a scene where she drops Olga off at this place where she says she's staying with friends.
okay, yeah, this is the most.
And when you see the
confusing.
outside of this building, it looks like someone lives there, right? And then she goes in, and Olga has forgotten a little stuffed plush bear.
Yeah.
So Tar, who's slowly trying to, like, you know, win this girl over, runs in there to bring her the bear, but the whole place is just fucking abandoned.
Yeah.
And the music is getting creepier and creepier. There's at one point where she, way down in a hallway, she thinks she's seeing like some dog or something, some creature of some sort. And then she starts to run out of the building and she slips on the stairs going up and smashes her face. That scene, that's kind of where
Well,
I'm not totally convinced of the haunted ghost stories, some things are in her head thing, but I understand why people are going there.
I'm not convinced that Olga didn't know where she hurt her face, because I actually thought that moment was really weird where Tar's been telling everyone that she got attacked, right? But then there's this moment when she and Olga are alone, and Olga looks at her and was like, "Where did you get hurt?"
Yeah.
And where were you attacked? And it's just kind of this odd little moment of like wondering what she's gonna say to her. And it's like, does she already know the answer or doesn't she? And maybe she did. Maybe she saw it. Maybe she didn't help. Maybe she was in one of those windows. I don't know.
Maybe Olga's like 5 steps ahead of her.
Olga's a werewolf.
Having to drop her off at a place where she doesn't live. Maybe she sees what's coming. Maybe Olga's had to deal with this with composers.
She doesn't want her to know where she sleeps, so she dunks in and back out. She wasn't even around.
Maybe Olga was warned by Francesca. Who knows? You can piece this stuff together.
Totally.
Anyway, but she's fired.
There's also a singing woman in that place that was weird.
Yeah.
So,
so she is kind of losing it. There is this funny scene where her neighbor dies, and we see that neighbor throughout the movie. Just to add to it, the people who own the place are like, we need to show the place, so we want to know when you're playing music, so there's no noise when we're showing the place off.
We don't want to scare off any prospective buyers.
And then Lydia takes out an accordion and sings this song.
So good.
And the credits credit that song as a song that Cate Blanchett really did. Very funny. Co-wrote.
So good.
So
that was one of that was a hilarious moment too. Like that was so bizarre and hilarious.
So Tar, she ends up going back to her Staten Island home, her modest little Staten Island home where she grew up, to run away or hide. And that's exactly what she did, because we see her brother for like a minute, and he is completely nonplussed by her presence.
He's like, hey, Lydia.
Yeah, and because that's her real fucking name, right? Which is just, and we kind of learn that late in the movie, which just kind of adds to the bullshitness of Tar.
We didn't learn it until she went to that house.
There's points where like Francesca's like, oh, do you want to stop and see your mother? And she's like, not this time. So you can tell she hasn't been there in a long time. And we don't even see her mother or anything. But her brother's down there, and he's just like, whatever, you're here to hide. And she's like, why do you say I'm hiding? He's like, you know what? It's none of my business. So, and he just kind of moves along. So near the end of the movie, we're winding down, and she goes to Thailand. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the work that she gets now, and she's conducting there.
But it plays it up as though she's really diving into this piece, and she's really preparing, and she wants to make this the best piece. You just think, oh, she's just gone somewhere where maybe they haven't heard about her transgressions, and she's conducting a big orchestra in Thailand.
She asked the guy at the hotel where she can go to get a massage. And Thailand is very known for its sex tourism. So if you're a white person in Thailand asking for a massage, they're probably going to send you to a fucking brothel because they think that's what you mean. So she goes into this room, and she looks through this window. A lady's asking her to pick a girl.
They call it the fishbowl.
Yeah. And did you see the number of the girl that looked up and made eye contact with her? Mahler's Fifth.
I did actually clock that.
I guess this, like...
I didn't realize the significance of
this
right now,
emotionally hits her as she runs out and she starts throwing up.
But what's the difference?
What's the difference?
But what's the difference if she'd fucked that girl than all the other girls she fucked? What's the fucking difference? I think that's why she puked. I think because she realized that she's a piece of shit.
The symphony that she's conducting is for a game called Monster Hunter. It's a real game. And you discover, because it does this intro, like a video game intro.
Yeah, I wonder, the screens came down right before the music started. But it was because until that moment, you did not know what was going to happen.
And then,
they played it very smart.
And then she starts conducting the music, and the camera pans to the audience, all cosplayers dressed in their Monster Hunter character
like they
gear.
Looked good. This is like official.
And that's where Lydia Tarr is. Maybe she's resentful, but she's also probably taking comfort in her outcastness at the same time.
She's martyring herself, I'm sure. Like, she's so narcissistic that this is what she's been forced to do because no one understands her. You know?
I guess
she's still going to put her all into everything. She's Lydia goddamn Tarr, you know?
Yeah. I guess this conversation was inevitably going to be long for us. There's no way this wasn't going to be a long conversation.
No, well, there's just so much to it.
All right, but you know what we do.
Yeah, we rate movies.
We hump them. We rate them. We hump them. You're going to give this 1 through 5. I'm going to give this 1 through 5. And we will combine them for best out of 10. Tar. Yeah. Considered one of the best movies of 2022.
I will say that the more I thought about it, the more we've talked about it, the more you've pointed out a few small things and I've had like some revelations. I like it more now than I did when I was watching it.
I think that's what's fantastic about this movie is that it begs a conversation in a way that is kind of few and far between with a lot of movies we might come across, you know? At least movies that are coming out today.
And what I would say, if I could, to myself right before we started watching this movie was just hold it with the eye rolls. There will be a point.
I think there's plenty of places to eye roll at this character, though. I don't think that's unfounded.
It was just like, oh, I hate this like NPR bullshit, whatever. But also, like, I mean, I guess it's supposed to make me feel that way because I did, and now in retrospect, like,
I mean, you know,
I didn't enjoy it in that I didn't enjoy any of the people I was watching, but I enjoy not the points, but the conversations that we've now had because of it.
Yes. I don't think Todd Field is trying to tell us.
No, I don't either. I don't think he's trying to teach us anything or tell us anything.
No, I think he's just trying to like tell a story in a modern context. Mm-hmm. I think it's a very modern movie in the sense that he's trying to show us kind of the way things are and what people will do in these environments. But I don't necessarily think he's telling us one way or another some broad lesson on cancel culture. No. And I honestly think that is too surface of a read of this movie.
Yeah, so it's not the points that it's making, it's the ideas or the thoughts or the points of view that it brings up.
Yes, it's a modern world movie, I would say. I mean, this is my interpretation, you know. Yeah. And I think like we've kind of come where you're at and where I'm at, we've kind of combined them in a way here. Yeah. But you must still rate this movie.
I'm going to give it a 4.
I'm going to give it a 5.
Wow. Okay.
I actually thought, I mean, you've often said before, what would you do to change?
Yeah.
What would you change about this movie? And there's so much up for interpretation. And I've actually really enjoyed, especially as we got going, I really enjoyed the conversation we had about this movie.
Yeah, for sure.
And to me, it really, and I mean, just cinematically and like the choices and the way the shots are framed. I mean, man, this movie is fucking good.
It is.
This movie is like pretty great.
I completely respect your 5. Solid. I mean, that's the high of the top of the A's. So.
Oh yeah. So we got a 9 with Tar.
Yeah, we got a 9.
Let me set this up here.
That's a tie with Crimes of the Future.
Cold War, Crimes of the Future, and My Own Private Idaho have a 9. Now I usually defer to you as to what ranks. I'm going to defer to myself this time.
Okay.
Tar is above every 9.
Okay. Disagree, but okay.
Hey, I think that's totally great that you disagree. But I think this movie is quite unique, and
it is.
And yeah, there is a lot of hubristic, eye-rolling bullshit in it. You know how I feel about that blowhard NPR shit.
I know,
but
yeah, and it's a personal thing that I actually need to work better on, of being able to like kind of push that aside and still listen to what's happening, because there's obviously a purpose or it wouldn't be there.
You're completely justified in not liking her.
No, I know that, but I mean, like, I can't just be like, oh, I don't even want to pay attention to what's happening right now because I hate these people. I can't do that because there was a reason for it.
But your instinct of everyone being full of shit, I think is really right on.
Yeah.
All right, so that's that movie, Tar. guys, check that out and go look at the link below to sign my change.org position. 5 signatures and it will be public. And then we will get Lydia Tarr uncanceled. And maybe we can get her down here in Nashville, where we're from, and play with the Nashville Symphony. I think that would be so cool.
Bobby, do we have to have a talk
I'm going to wear my
how
shirt.
movies are not real?
I'm going to wear my shirt that says Proud Tard.
This is a movie. She's not a real person. We didn't even talk about that. A lot of people thought this was
A
based
lot of
on
people
real
thought
people,
she was real.
Not based on anybody.
No.
Where would you find that link? In the show notes?
In the show notes, find links to places to find us and the link to the change.org position.
Ignore that part, but the other
petition.
stuff, yes.
Please sign it.
No. Death to all traitors.
Death to all traitors.